Folks, I'd like to call the July 3rd meeting of the Bristol, Tennessee City Council to order this evening. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Appreciate you coming out to participate in your City Council meeting. We have kind of an interesting evening ahead. This is our annual reorganizational meeting, so you'll see that happen here in just the next few minutes. These are the notes that Jeff prepares for the mayor every single month, and I never read them. I mean, it has everything highlighted, and it's really awfully nice of him to do this for me, but I can read or I can talk, so I just talk. We've got a few extra special guests. We've got Guy Odom from Bristol, Virginia, now Vice Mayor Guy Odom from Bristol, Virginia. We have Dr. Gary Lilly, who serves as our superintendent of schools. We have him with us this evening. As always, we have Roger Brown representing the Herald Courier. If Roger don't write about it, it doesn't happen. I'm going to go ahead and have Terry call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Here.
Councilwoman Firehofer.
Here.
Vice Mayor State.
Here.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilman Zandy.
Here.
Thank you, Terry. This evening, giving our invocation, we've got Pastor Dan Birchfield with us this evening. He is a native of Dayton, Ohio, and has served for the past 17 years at East Bristol Baptist Church as the pastor there. He also serves on the board of Bristol Faith in Action. After Pastor Dan gives our invocation, I'm going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, folks, join with us. Stand for Pastor Dan Birchfield.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, so often in the midst of a hectic schedule and busy days, we fail to stop and seek your guidance and seek your wisdom. But today, O God, we take time to do that. And Lord, we want to stop and thank you for our city leaders. We ask, O God, that you would bless them and guide them. Lord, they carry tremendous responsibility, the decisions that they must make. So therefore, Lord, we pray for wisdom to make decisions that will benefit our citizens and our community. And Lord, we thank you for our community. We thank you, Lord, for all that you have blessed this city, Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia. You've blessed us, Lord, in so many ways. Thank you, Lord, that our community can come together and we see such growth and such potential for continued growth. We ask, oh God, that would happen. And Lord, we thank you for all the gifts and talents that we have here. And Lord, we pray your continued guidance. May we as a community be willing to work together, to work with one another, to do whatever we need to do, oh God, to benefit our fellow citizens. And again, oh God, we thank you for our city council, for our leaders. Bless them, O God, as they make crucial decisions. We thank you for this time together. We ask it in your name, O Lord. Amen.
Amen. Join with me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Birchfield. First order of business this evening is reorganization, and this is the opportunity that we have to choose who the mayor and vice mayor is going to be for the next year. So at this point, folks, I'm just going to open it up to members of the council. Is there a motion?
I'll move to nominate Joel Staton for mayor.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Do you want a speech?
Huh?
Do you want a speech?
From me or Joel?
From making a nomination. So I wanted just to thank Joel for being willing. I also wanted to thank David for serving for the past year. It does take a little extra time, a little extra work to be mayor. I also think there's pluses and minuses to our not having a strong mayor. And also, we've just been in a mode of rotating it. So in the past, sometimes mayors have served more than one term, 1, 2, 3 terms. But I think it says a lot for our form of government as a city manager council form of government, that by rotating around, giving different people a chance, it indicates that it's not a strong mayor, that the mayor is a leader of our group, does a lot of the ceremonial things when they can. They also share it with others when they can't, and I appreciate our council for being willing to do this and for being willing to serve. So.
Thank you, Margaret. With that said, anybody else want to join in? If not, Ms. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilman Zandy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Joel, with your permission, I'll go ahead and call for the vote for vice mayor before we turn it over.
Yes, sir.
All right. With that, folks, we have an opportunity now to choose who's going to serve as vice mayor now that Joel has stepped up. Is there a motion?
I make the motion that Councilman Ben Zandy serves as vice mayor.
All right, thank you, Joel. We have a motion.
A second.
And Michelle, thank you. We have a second. Any discussion?
He looks excited. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Yes.
Mayor State?
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Folks, at this point, we're going to have a short recess for about 15 minutes. We invite all of you to join us in our cafeteria here just directly behind you. We're going to have cookies and cake and punch, and then we're going to come back in here and have the rest of our meeting. We're just going to congratulate these folks. So we are recessed for about 15.
I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Mr. Broughton, are there any agenda additions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one additional item. It's been distributed to each of the members of council, and that's a proclamation regarding South Holston Lake. And so that'll be read under the proclamation section.
I believe Councilman David Shoemaker is going to read that. It's South Holston Lake and River Cleanup.
You want to have Mark Webb come up?
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
if Mark Webb will come to the podium to accept this. Thank you, Margaret.
This is a proclamation designating Keep Bristol Beautiful South Holston Lake and River Cleanup Day. Whereas the second Saturday in August has been established as the day residents of Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia should participate in the 20th annual South Holston Lake Cleanup. This day should carry a desire and a purpose to add beauty and a natural appearance to the landscape through cleanup efforts. And whereas at a time when public lands and waterways are being reduced at an alarming rate, volunteer cleanup activities are one of the most important we can undertake to assure America's beauty. And whereas a clean environment is a legacy to our future, each man, woman, and child of this region is encouraged to make an invaluable contribution to the lives of future generations. Now, therefore, Joel Staton, Mayor of the City of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim Saturday, August 4th, 2012 as Keep Bristol Beautiful South Holston Lake and River Cleanup Day in Bristol, Tennessee, and commend area residents for their 20th annual efforts. Signed this third day of July 2012, Mayor Joel Staton.
On behalf of the South Holston Lake and River Cleanup Committee and over 400 volunteers annually who participate in the cleanup, I thank you for this proclamation. I also want to thank the City of Bristol for their efforts in keeping us with refuge removal. They have been a part of our group for 20 years. I like to brush my teeth in clean water, and I feel that we have made the lake a lot cleaner, and I'd hate to know where we would be if we haven't had these efforts going on for 20 years. Not only have we been cleaning the lake, but we've been educating people who use the lake, and our efforts are paying off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have no presentations tonight, so we move on to public hearings. And the first public hearing would be zoning text amendment for adult-oriented establishments. Mr. Broughton.
And Mr. Hyder is going to take this for me, please.
Thank you. You have before you tonight ordinance 12-7, which is an amendment to section 220 of the zoning ordinance. That deals with adult-oriented establishments. Purpose of the ordinance is to update our regulations for these type of businesses to conform with certain changes that have made both in the Tennessee law and federal law over the past few years. As I mentioned last time, a city cannot ban these type of businesses, but you can regulate where they locate, and this ordinance is an attempt to do that by placing restrictions on where they can locate in the community. If you flip to the next slide, then we'll talk about the ordinance. Under the proposed ordinance, the adult-oriented establishments would be allowed in two zoning districts, the B3 General Business District and the M2 General Industrial District, but there would be certain restrictions, and the restrictions are important. First of all, the business would have to be at least 1,000 feet from any of the following: a child care facility, a school, park, family recreation center, residence, place of worship, funeral home, library, hospital, liquor store, or residentially zoned property. Secondly, the business could not be located within 1/2 mile of another adult-oriented establishment. Thirdly, the adult-oriented establishment could not be located in our border region retail tourism development district, that is the exit 74 area. And lastly, if one of these businesses were to locate in a B3 zone, it would have to be located on and have access to an arterial street, and those are our major highway streets such as State Street, Volunteer Parkway, Highway 394, Highway 421. There are also a couple of housekeeping amendments included in this ordinance that would amend our definition section 203 by changing some of the definitions that relate to these type of establishments. Also, there is a small amendment proposed to section 502, the M2 zoning district. The Planning Commission considered this ordinance in May and recommended it to City Council by unanimous vote last month. Then the City Council passed it on first reading. There was a notice of public hearing advertised in the Bristol Herald-Courier newspaper. And Mr. Mayor, the ordinance is now before the council for a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We'll open the public hearing on this, and is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to address council on this matter? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing and move on to appearance of citizens. This is the section where you have the opportunity to talk to City Council on any matter that is not on the agenda. A response will not be given, as the City Council nor the City Manager has an opportunity to prepare a response. The City Manager will look into the matter and get back with you at an appropriate time. Is there anyone that would like to approach City Council on any matter that is not on the agenda? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Seeing none, we'll move on to appointments. First appointment is to the Better Property Board. Mr. Broughton, would you like to read?
I will. Tonight we have actually 6 boards that have candidates that the council will be considering populating through the selection process. The first is the Better Property Board. There are 3 appointments to be made to that board, and that's for a 3-year term of office, and there are 3 candidates that have submitted documents to be considered applicants for those, and they include John Cartwright, Randy Cook, and Wayne Humphrey.
If everybody would mark their ballots and pass them to the right, is there any council members that would like to speak on behalf of anybody?
I'll just first off say thanks to all the folks who serve on our boards and commissions. We have quite a few, and people serve as volunteers on those boards and commissions. And also, it's very nice when we get applicants that are qualified to serve. So this time for this one, we have 3, and I think John Cartwright's here, who's new. We have Herb Barker, who is going off the board, and then Randall Cook and Wayne Humphrey, who have been serving and or have been doing a great job on that board. So that's it.
And for the term, a 3-year term on the Better Property Board, Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Cook and Mr. Humphrey. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Cook and Mr. Humphrey. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Cook, Mr. Humphrey. Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Cook and Mr. Humphrey. And Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Cartwright, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Humphrey, each of whom are appointed to the Better Property Board.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all for being willing to serve. The next board is the Emergency Communications Board, and we have 2 vacancies on it. If you'll mark your ballots. And Mr. Broughton, would you like to?
You have 3 candidates for those 2 positions to be filled. They include Frank Blanton, Karen Hale, and Shelton Hillman. Okay, for a 4-year term on the Emergency Communications Board, Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Blanton and Mr. Hillman. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Blanton and Mr. Hillman. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Blanton and Mr. Hillman. Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Blanton and Mr. Hillman. Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Blanton and Mr. Hillman. Frank Blanton and Shelton Hillman are each appointed to the Emergency Communications Board.
Thank you. The next board is the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. You have 1 appointment for it. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on behalf of any of the candidates? If not, mark your ballots and send them to the right.
I'll speak on, again, I spoke with all 3 candidates, and everybody seems to be very well qualified. I have been working with Reverend Dowling Soka, who is from First United Methodist Church, and he has been working on the Family Promise of Bristol and other housing issues in our community. So I felt like he was a good person to serve at this time on our housing authority. So I support him.
For a 5-year term on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Gaines. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Gaines. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Dowling Soka, Mr. Dowling Soka. Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Dowling Soka, and Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Dowling Soka. With 3 votes, Mr. Dowling Soka is appointed to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority.
The next commission is for Parks and Recreation Commission. We have actually 3 openings, but we only have 1 candidate. If you'd like to mark your ballots and pass them to the right, please. Margaret, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I spoke with Chris Estep, and he is the swim coach at Tennessee High. He's already served a term. He, last term, part of it, he was also being a softball coach, so when we saw our attendance, he missed a few meetings. He's no longer a softball coach, so his intention is to have better attendance and participation. He also spoke very highly of the 2 members who did not reapply, who are Harriet Locke, who is famous in our community for being a runner, and I believe she's in her 80s and still active running, as well as on our Parks and Rec, have served a couple of terms on Parks and Rec. And then Ann Miskowski, who served a term and has moved outside of the city, I believe. So both of them have done a great job, and they'll get a thank you note from us, but we appreciate it.
Margaret, can I just add in, Harriet Locke celebrated her 80th birthday last week in France.
In France.
So she had a big old trip.
Awesome.
For a three-year term of office on the Park and Recreation Commission, Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Eastep, Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Eastep, Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Eastep, Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Eastep, and Ms. Dolan also votes for Christopher Eastep, who is appointed to the Park and Recreation Commission.
Thank you. The next commission would be the Planning Commission. We have 3 openings and 4 candidates. If you'll mark your ballots and pass them to the right, please. Is there anyone that'd like to speak on behalf of anybody? Well, I serve on the Planning Commission, and Kelly Graham and Mark Webb have done an excellent job. And I don't know Larry Clark or Dustin Morlock very well or at all, but I do know that Kelly and Mark have done an excellent job on the Planning Commission.
I'll second that also, and I appreciate that Mark Webb, I served with Mark Webb several years ago, and continuity and some history, bringing that to the Planning Commission is important. Also, there's some boards that we have that have a little longer, bigger learning curve and things changing more. Planning Commission is one of those, so it really helps to serve for a period of time to be able to learn the ins and the outs of that board, so appreciate their service. Also, I served with Larry Clark during my time on networks and really appreciate what he can bring to the table and appreciate that he's willing to serve.
For a 3-year term of office on the Planning Commission, Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Shoemaker, Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Graham, and Mr. Webb. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Graham, Mr. Webb. Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Graham, and Mr. Webb. Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Graham, and Mr. Webb. And Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Clark, Mr. Graham, and Mark Webb. Larry Clark, Kelly Graham, and Mark Webb are appointed to the Planning Commission for a term of office ending June 30th, 2015.
And thank you, gentlemen, for serving. The next board is the Power Board. We have 1 opening, and we have 2 candidates. Please mark your ballots and pass them to the right.
Mayor, I'd like to speak on behalf of Mr. Boyd,
Please
who
do.
serves on the Power Board right now. Of course, everybody's aware, Brian is, also serves as County Commissioner from Bristol, so the tie-in with the County Commission and BTS, I think, is very important. And secondly, and I think former Mayor Graham is in the audience with us this evening, he'll attest, Brian Boyd knows the technology better than any of the 5 of us serving on that board right now, and it's really essential as fast as things are changing to have somebody who really knows that technology. And Lord, y'all know I don't, okay? But Brian really knows this stuff, so be glad to have him back.
And Brian does apologize for not being here tonight. He was doing computer and software change-outs up towards Abington, and they were having a power failure when he was trying to do it. So he regrets that he's not here tonight.
For a 4-year term of office on the Power Board, Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Boyd, Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Boyd, Ms. Firerobin votes for Mr. Boyd, Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Shoemaker votes for Brian Boyd, who is appointed to the Power Board for a term of office ending June 30, 2016.
Next on the agenda is ordinance and resolutions. and be the first reading of new ordinances. Ordinance number 12-8. Mr. Broughton.
Ordinance number 12-8 is an ordinance to amend the zoning map by designating certain property as B3 General Business District. Street address of 1400 Southside Avenue. This is first reading of an ordinance to change from R2 Single Family and Duplex Residential District the property at 1400 Southside Avenue, which is the home of Woodlawn Baptist Church, to change it from R2 to B3 General Business District. Maybe you can go to the next slide, Sherry. There's a aerial view of the location of the property in question. It's located between West Cedar Street to the immediate south of that crosshatched area, and Rustic Street to the immediate north. To the right side or on the east side of the crosshatched area is Southside Avenue, and to the top right at about 2 o'clock it would be Tennessee High School's campus. The area is one that, next slide, Sherry, was recognized when we did our land use study a few years ago. It's at the intersecting point of 3 areas. They include the commercial land use in the future, which is represented by red. You can see the subject property towards the bottom with the circle, blue circle, maybe a little hard to see. But it's really at the intersecting point of 3 land uses: multifamily, commercial, and institutional. The current zoning, R2 district, is designed for single family and duplex dwellings, and this is a church. A church like the Woodlawn Baptist Church is allowed as a special use. The proposed zoning change to B3 is designed for business and other activities, and it includes churches as a principal permitted use. So, and the historical use of that property, given historical use of the property as a church, which is a permitted principal use in the proposed B3 district, coupled with the broad array of uses and the convergence of those 3 land use categories right there in that subject area, all augur in favor of the rezoning as was recommended by the Planning Commission at its June 18th meeting. With that, Mr. Mayor, we'll be happy to answer any questions the council has regarding the rezoning of property at 1400 Southside Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Does any member of council have any questions for staff? Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, what's council's pleasure?
Motion to move forward. Second.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, David. Any discussion?
I would just say this is probably a planner's dream to straighten up the map and get it in compliance or whatever, and pretty much just a matter of business for the city. So thank you, planner, Sherry, for getting it straight.
Anybody else? Terry, we're ready.
Councilwoman Fire Roberts.
Yes.
Mayor Staten.
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is adoption of ordinances on second reading. Ordinance 12-7.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ordinance number 12-7 is an ordinance to amend sections 220, 203, and 502 of the zoning ordinance relating to adult-oriented establishments. This is the item that was the subject of the public hearing. A few minutes ago, the city attorney did quite well in explaining the purpose behind this text amendment, and with the recommendation of the Planning Commission, staff also forwarded it to the City Council for adoption this evening.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions for Jack? Seeing none, we had a public hearing on this, so there will not be any other public hearing on it. And We had a motion.
Right.
We had a second.
So discussion.
So Terry,
Or any
any discussion? I
Oh.
didn't think so.
No, well, no, I'll say something.
Okay.
That this is, you know, it's kind of, it's our responsibility to do some regulation. And it's also kind of interesting, the day before our Independence Day, this is where we have to balance freedoms that we have, freedom of speech, et cetera, and our free market with safety and protection of our citizens. So it's one of those things that it's our responsibility to try to find the best balance, right?
Thank you, Margaret. I think we're ready for a roll call. Terry?
Councilwoman Robin?
Yes.
Mayor State?
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Resolutions. Resolution 12-70. Mr. Brock.
Resolution 12-7, number 12-70 is a resolution approving a temporary exception to wastewater discharge criteria for Dynamic Recycling LLC and applying a surcharge. The city's sewer use ordinance establishes discharge criteria, including a discharge level for BOD, which is biochemical oxygen demand. Currently, the standard or the threshold that is established is 2,800 milligrams per liter for an industry to discharge to our wastewater treatment plant. Any amount to be discharged above that level requires express permission of City Council, and that's the reason that this is on the agenda this evening. The Dynamic Recycling has been working with two of our departments pretty aggressively, bad choice of words, pretty in a very involved way, trying to relocate a business to Bristol, Tennessee. And the site where this business will be operated is at the Municipal Industrial Park on Industrial Drive. I'll have a map on that in just a minute. As a part of the process of working with Dynamic Recycling, it became obvious to the staff after looking at our discharge criteria that, number one, a special exception would be required. And so the staff, this is Bill Soren, Public Works, spent a great deal of time trying to understand better the criteria, the type of effluent that they would be sending to the wastewater plant, trying to understand its impact on the operations of our treatment plant, and finding a way where this thing can be a win-win for both the city and the wastewater, regional wastewater treatment plant, and, as well as for the industry that was desiring to operate within our city limits. After looking at this and studying it better, what we concluded is that the additional BOD that Dynamic Recycling would be sending down to us would actually be beneficial to the treatment plant operations. And in fact, it'd be quite beneficial during periods of wet weather when we have extraneous stormwaters entering into our pipes coming to the wastewater plant being treated. With that additional volumes, the dilution of the BOD was making harder for us as the operator, Severn Trent as the operator of the plant for the two cities, to meet our permit requirements to clean 85% of the BOD coming in. Because of that dilution, it was becoming hard. It was hard for us to satisfy our permit requirements. So basically, by the addition of the additional BOD, it helps us in satisfying the permit requirements that we have to satisfy to our regulators. The request to allow up to 15,000 milligram liters per day at the levels of full production that is being identified will still provide significant plant capacity at our plant to handle additional customers that may have BOD that'll be coming to us in the future. Right now, we're only loaded at about 37% of our design capacity to treat BOD, with this company locating at the strengths that we're talking about, giving them the exception, and at the volumes, this would only take it up to about 50%. So even with this customer and every other customer we have in the system, we'll still only be at half of the design capacity of the plant. So there's no real risk that we can see in the foreseeable future that adding additional BOD will be somewhat limiting for future customers that we may have. In fact, if you remember back over time, a lot of the large BOD contributors in the past are no longer with us. Valleydale Meats, Crowley Foods, Kearns, those were high contributors of BOD. They're not on our system. And so we have really capacity to handle a lot of BOD. There is additional cost to treat this higher level of waste. It requires more aeration, basically, and that's electrical costs for the most part to aerate it to the level that when we send the effluent out of our plant, it satisfies our discharge requirements of less than 30 milligrams per liter. And so that requires that we have a sewer surcharge, an additional charge to this customer to pay for that additional cost of treatment. And that additional surcharge and what's embodied in this resolution is 6 cents per pound for all BOD in excess of 300 milligrams per liter per day. This will not generate net income to the wastewater treatment plant operations. It's simply designed to cover the additional treatment costs. The company understands, and I know they're quite satisfied with the financial arrangement that we're able to provide to them as a part of making this beneficial to them as well as to us. With that, I'll be happy to end my conversations if there's any. Go to the next slide, Sherry. I was wondering, this is what I didn't say, and this will cap my conversation and presentation, is the dynamic recycling will actually be operating, with your permission this evening, in 2 locations in that industrial park. The 220 North Industrial Drive, which is directly across the street from Seaman Corporation, is the property that they are in the process of acquiring and will be making ready operationally where they can conduct their regular operations in there. And that's probably 6 months away or so, maybe a little longer than that, to be ready for that. Until they're able to operate from that facility at 220 North Industrial Drive, they will be operating at a temporary facility which is owned by Necessary Oil at 215 North Industrial Drive. And what will be placed there, just so you understand how it'll work, is there will be tank trucks of wastewater that'll be brought to 215 North Industrial Drive. They'll be deposited into a 14,000-gallon storage tank, and that storage tank will then, at a 10-gallon per minute rate, discharge into our sewer system, go down to our treatment plant, and be treated as is any other waste. So operationally, there will be this temporary setup until the 220 North Industrial Drive is ready. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does council have any questions for staff?
Mr. Broughton, how many green jobs would that create for Bristol?
The company has indicated that they expect after 3 years of operation to have 30 positions employed at this site.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to speak on this matter? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Seeing none, what's the pleasure of council?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Ben. Any further discussion?
Thank you for coming to Bristol.
Terry, I believe we're ready.
Councilwoman Claire Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Staten.
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Yes.
Next is Resolution 12-71. Mr. Broughton.
Resolution number 12-71 is a resolution approving the submission of an application to the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development under the Fast Track Infrastructure Development Program to assist in providing drainage modification and infrastructure improvements and relocations at 220 North Industrial Drive in Bristol, Tennessee. This is a companion item to the action you just took. The property that we just described where dynamic recycling will be operating we will be assisting them with your authorization to forward a grant application. We'll be assisting them seeking grant funds from the state of Tennessee for infrastructure and drainage improvements at that site, 220 North Industrial Drive. There'll be some drainage modifications to allow for building expansion, relocation of electric service, some storm and wastewater system improvements, all of that to make that site better suited for their operational needs and to prepare it for future expansions when the company reaches the point to expand. The project, it will be a $224,000 project with the state to provide $184,000. The local match will be paid by the company, and we ask your approval to submit such application this evening.
Are there any questions for staff from council?
I have, what's the time frame for, I mean, this is a fast track, and also, is this a grant that we will get if we apply, or is it discretionary, or how does that work?
It's a discretionary grant program. The state typically looks very favorably on any grant under this program that will generate jobs and taxable investment. This project, I didn't mention 30 jobs to Mr. Zandy's question, and there'll be another $3.7 million of investment in equipment and new machinery. And we typically would be talking, and I know we have, Mr. Sparks would be talking to the state, and as a part of preparing the application, feeding them and probably just getting good vibes about submit it, and I can't remember when we've had turned down. I don't know, Mike, can you? Maybe we have, but. Okay, so I think we have great indicators that once they receive it, that they'll look at it favorably.
Any other questions?
Did you get an answer about a time frame?
No.
Is that like 1 week, did you say, Mike?
The ECD staff reviews this on they say weekly basis, sometimes it takes longer. We get a month for a year, and then we get a contract back, and that'll be executed.
And folks who couldn't hear that, that's within a month, we would get a contract back and move forward with that. Thank you, Michelle.
Anybody else? Is there anyone in attendance tonight that'd like to come to the podium and speak on this matter? Seeing none, pleasure of council.
Move to vote.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Terry, we're ready for the vote.
Councilwoman Feierabend?
Yes.
Mayor State?
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Next is Resolution 12-72. Mr. Broughton.
Resolution number 12-72 is a resolution approving the submission of an application to the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development under the Fast Track Infrastructure Development Program to assist in providing infrastructure and other improvements and an economic development grant for facility improvements at 2536 West State Street in Bristol, Tennessee. This one mirrors what you were just asked to consider an application to the state for fast track grant funds for the Touchstone Wireless Facility site, 2536 West State, former Touchstone Wireless site. The fast track grant that we are seeking is for a $182,000 project, and that would include electrical service upgrades and drainage modifications with the local match to be paid by the owner or the company that is preparing to locate in that facility. The second part of this resolution, though, also authorizes the city to apply for an economic development grant from the Department of Economic and Community Development as well. This is a new grant program. Just came about as a part of the changes that the legislature signed off on this past legislative session. It's so new, the states doesn't have its criteria in place yet as to how they will use that grant fund, but it'll be much broader in terms of its use than anything they've had in the past to try to be more economically competitive as a state. So the second part of this resolution authorizes us to submit a grant application for building modifications once they tell us they're ready to accept an application. So we're trying to get ahead of the game and be the first one in the door, and I guess is a simple way to say that. If there's a match requirement, and there could be, but there may not, the benefiting company or property owner would pay the match, just like the FIDP grant application. So different, first time ever for Bristol, first time maybe statewide, where somebody's submitting a formal application for this new grant program. With your permission, we'll get both of those. We'll get the first one in immediately, and the second one will be, once we understand the regulations, we'll get that in front of them at the earliest opportunity.
Okay. Is there any questions for staff from council? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance that would like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, the pleasure of council.
I'll make a motion to move.
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Ben. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, you know, thanks to Mike Sparks and Planning Department and Jeff Broughton, you know, a lot of communities see an old Walmart building sitting for years and years. Our folks, Jeff used the word aggressive a while ago and then retracted it. I think we have been pretty aggressive in attracting business. We watched the Walmart building turn into Touchstone Wireless. And how long has it been since Touchstone was bought out and gone? Maybe a year. We've got another company coming into that building. We're not looking at our buildings. And Mike, I want to thank you and Jeff and the other folks on Planning Department for being aggressive and getting someone back into that, more jobs back into the community to replace the ones that we lost. So I got to thank you.
Anyone else? Terry, we're ready for the vote.
Councilwoman Claire Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Stady.
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Yes.
Next is Resolution 12-75. Mr. Broughton.
Resolution number 12-75 is a resolution approving the purchase of real property. The real property is, take the map up, Sherry. The real property is located right next door to the Slater Center. This is an old aerial photograph that doesn't depict the built environment, but the house there at 415 McDowell is a small, modest, about 800 square feet size property, but it's located immediately on the edge of our expanded parking lot to the west or to the left on the screen. You know, you'll recall last year we expanded the parking lot here on the east side to accommodate the increased parking demand that we have. The opportunity has presented itself with the property immediately adjacent to us to buy that property. Basically what happened, the property owner contacted us, asked if we would have interest in buying it before she put it to a realtor to try to sell. She's an out-of-town owner now. And after discussing price, we came away with a price of $42,500, which we think's fair and reasonable. Just for comparative purposes, Sullivan County Assessor's Office has the property on the tax rolls at $52,100. So at $42,500, we think it's a fair price. You know, the ultimate use of the property, we can always use additional parking. The structure may be some possibilities with the existing structure. We don't know. We haven't even had a chance to inspect it yet, but we do know that because of its proximity to this site and because of our need just to have additional space to operate successfully from here, it makes sense for us, with or without a structure, to acquire that. We recommend that you sign off on the acquisition.
Are there any questions for staff from council? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance that would like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, the pleasure of council.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Margaret. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I know a good residential home inspector would be glad to take a good look at that property for you, Jeff, and give you recommendation about what we might do with it.
That be a conflict of interest?
I think, well, after we've already bought it, huh?
We'll have to give it to the low bidder.
And you're bidding
Somebody's
zero.
going to bid less than zero?
Some
If
people
you
pay
can
us.
find somebody who'll do it for less than that, go for it.
Anybody else?
It's a good opportunity. It's with it being right next to this building. We've been very fortunate to have this building, and quite a few years ago, used our own staff to refurbish and fix it up. We have a nice place to meet, nice place for our seniors and other community programs, so it's a great opportunity right there. So,
Anyone else? Terry, you're ready for a vote.
Councilwoman Fire Roberts.
yes.
Mayor State.
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Mr. Broughton, would you mind reading those, please?
I will. We have 16 items on the consent agenda this evening. Typically, the consent agenda, as the council is aware, is longer at the June and July meetings, because at those two meetings, we're in the process of presenting and asking for adoption a number of bids and contracts and other action items that are associated with the start of the new fiscal year. And so this one has 16 items on it, and they include the minutes of the June 5th City Council meeting, includes Resolution 1257, awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk asphalt products, includes Resolution 1258, awarding a bid for the purchase of in-place asphalt, includes Resolution 1259, awarding a bid for the purchase of highway pavement marking, application, and removal, includes Resolution 1260, authorizing payment in support of the Bristol, Tennessee City Schools, includes Resolution 1261, awarding a bid for the purchase of delivered limestone and sand, includes Resolution 1262, authorizing payment in support of the Industrial Development Board of the City of Bristol, Tennessee, includes Resolution 1263, approving a grant agreement with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for the utilization of Federal Transit Administration Section 5303 funds, includes Resolution 1264, authorizing the purchase of software support for computer-aided dispatch system, includes Resolution 1265, awarding bids for the purchase of limestone and sand on a picked-up basis, includes Resolution 1266, awarding a bid for the purchase of water and sewer supplies, includes Resolution 1267, authorizing the purchase of software support for financial software system, includes Resolution 1268, awarding a bid for the purchase of highway salt, includes Resolution 1269, approving the submittal of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security under its Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program, includes Resolution 1273, authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Tennessee Department of Agriculture under its Urban Forestry Program, and includes Resolution 1274, authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Tennessee Department of Agriculture under its Urban Forestry Program TAPE activity.
Thank you, sir. Would any member of council like any item removed from the consent agenda? The pleasure of council.
Move to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Margaret. Terry, we're ready for vote.
Councilwoman Fire Roberts.
Yes.
Mayor State.
Yes.
Councilman Shoemaker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zandy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is city manager's report. Mr. Broughton.
After all those resolutions, I can't talk. I have nothing formal on the agenda to speak to. I will make an introduction. David made some very kind words to Mike Sparks and to Sherry and her planners and to me about the aggressive activities that the city's been on to try to grow our economy. We have a new staff member in the audience tonight that is joining with us in our efforts to grow jobs and create economic activity, and that's Christy Halsey. Christy, raise your hand. Smile. There you go. Christy reported to work 2 weeks ago. After the first week working with Mike, we all had our doubts she'd come back, but she has, so that's a good sign. And anyway, she came to us from Chattanooga, is a native of Northeast Tennessee. She's glad to be back home. We're glad to have her. So, Christy, thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
And, welcome.
We're glad you're here. Second item, we went through a number of appointments this evening. We have a number more yet to be made at the next meeting. I'll have a reminder memo come out next week with all of the positions yet to be filled. Those that we didn't get applications for this meeting, as well as some new applications, some new appointments that'll take place, and next month is when the Industrial Development Board appointments come up. So you'll have a number of appointments to be made. Hopefully we'll have a number of candidates competing for those spots.
Thank you, sir. City Council comments.
Yeah, I've always got some.
I do too. You can go first.
Hey, well, I'll be pretty brief. First off, I'm kind of glad to be down on this end of the table, so Margaret can't kick me under the desk
I
anymore.
have never kicked you.
You threaten.
That was Fred Esser.
You threaten. Folks, I truly enjoyed my year as mayor. This is the third time around for me, and really enjoyed it. Also, I enjoy being a council member. I enjoy being able to think about what I'm going to say rather than what everybody else is saying. So that's kind of nice too. It kind of takes a little bit of the heat off of me. But it's Margaret, you referred to the weak mayor. Well, we have a city manager form of government and a mayor that is just simply the spokesperson. No more power than anybody else on the council. But, you know, it's quite an honor each time that you get to do that. It's an honor for, you know, it's an honor for my family. And I appreciate having the opportunity to do that. Margaret, I know that you're going to say lots about Jerry. I'm just going to very briefly say, you know, Bristol lost one of our heroes today in the death of Jerry Goodpasture. My first introduction to Jerry was years ago, I guess, Margaret, 16, 17 years ago, the Ignite process, a year or so before I came on council. That's what got me interested in maybe attending council meetings and running for city council. But there was this one woman that just stuck out because she was such a firecracker. Jerry Goodpasture is, Jerry Goodpasture was a force of nature. You know, when Jerry set her mind to something, she just went straight ahead. She was fearless, wasn't scared of anything, loved to talk truth to power, and Jerry accomplished as much for our community as any dozen council people put together could do. She's going to be sorely missed.
I think you said it, David, so I don't know that I have a whole lot to add. A lot of people in the community know her. A lot of people have stories to tell. Personally, I found out the hard way you wanted to be on the same side that Jerry was fighting for. Also, I think it's just important for us all to think about her family and It's hard to lose a family member, and hard to lose a family member that's been strong person. So we want to think about her husband Frank and her kids during this time, and we want to really appreciate. And I see Roger Brown's gone, but a great opportunity that Jerry was brave enough to do, and our newspaper to do the series and help us all to understand what. I love the title Journeys In, because she helped to start Journeys In for our community.
Margaret, can you name some of those things? Can we think of some of those things that Jerry
And also, no, Jerry
started?
didn't do stuff by herself. She had lots of other people helping, but she was out front, and she was the one who fought for stuff, and very impatient for some of it. But yeah, the big notable things that we see in our community, Journeys In was her idea. And is also called La Posadas, which is Spanish for Journeys In, and she knew about it from her trips to Spain and exchange students. She and Ann Gillenwater. Border Bash that we enjoy, that was begun with Jerry and Ann and others. Beaver Creek, we're seeing the progress with the Corps of Engineers. It's not what their dream was, but what their dream caused realities to happen with the Corps of Engineers remapping and are being able to take advantage of flood control measures. That's a humongous amount of money brought to our community that those folks did with Jerry as one of the main leaders. The loft tours, which some folks here will remember. We forget when the first loft tour was, but the first time we had a loft tour, there was one completed loft, and it was at First Class Travel. The rest of them were just dreams. They were just second floor building that people had to be careful stepping where they were stepping. And within a year, the next year when they held it again, there had been a turnover of, Mike, do you remember, 24 properties or something downtown. It was what caused that big boom to help us be able to live, work, and play downtown. So those are some of the same.
Believe in Bristol?
Believe in Bristol, the organization, which our downtown's gone through several different revitalizations, and Jerry herself worked on and had to fight the IRS, and she won. If anybody's done a 501c3 charitable application, you got to be real careful where you put those little check marks. And if you check the wrong box off, you get sent in this pile instead of this pile. So, but Jerry worked on the actual. We did a lot before we were Believe in Bristol with the downtown task force, et cetera. But then for the actual organization of Believe in Bristol, Jerry helped literally to form that organization. So also, I knew her from Soccer Association. Folks who've played soccer in this town well know Jerry Goodpasture for what all she did with coaching soccer, reffing soccer, organizing soccer teams, doing a lot for soccer. So, yeah, and I'm sure there's other stuff she did as well. She was on Beaver Creek Watershed Alliance. I think she stuck with that a while to help us do what we can to clean up our Beaver Creek and make it a good place. So, a lot of different things, a lot of an effect, and a good lesson for all of us for what kinds of things we can accomplish if we set our mind to it. So. It's hard to transition from that. Do you want to ask Gary to speak?
Yeah,
And then I have a couple other things.
Dr.
Thank you.
Lilly, I forgot to mention you. Would you like to come up, please?
I'll keep my comments very brief. I want to let the City Council know that the School Board of Education publicly recognized the City Council members at their last board meeting and wanted me to pass along their appreciation for the city's help with paving. If you've driven by Haynesfield lately, then you'll see that it's a dramatic improvement to that school campus. So thank you very much, and we hope that you all have a great Independence Day. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Margaret.
That was quick. So, yeah, I just had a couple things. Kelly Graham, we mentioned, is here, and he's got a BTS electric car that he's showing off today. And I'm sure folks who are here can go look at it afterwards. You offering rides around or just looks, whatever. And he doesn't get to drive that all the time. People around town will be able to see it. It's very well labeled with a wrap or whatever, so that's exciting. Also, I spoke with David Ring during the break, and he's here representing Strongwell, but he's also president of our United Way board, so appreciate your being here and participating with us tonight. And I wanted to welcome our new Economic Development Director. Thank you for being here. And again, we try to thank our city workers. We had Star Spangled Saturday, which we try to do that on Saturday closest to 4th of July, which somebody said it's not the closest this time, but anyway, we did it before the 4th rather than after. Lots of good people plan that, but also it always requires a lot of cleanup in hot weather, et cetera. So we really appreciate our city workers for doing that. And with that, it kind of moves me into trying to embarrass Jeff the best that I can, but I think last time we said he was going to get an award, and now we can say that he got an award, and I apologize that I was unable to be there, but the Tennessee City Managers Association selects the City Manager of the Year every year, and I believe quite a few staff went down to be with Jeff when he was recognized, but it is a big honor, and I'll say the newspaper covered our evaluation. I've always been a good critic, hopefully constructive criticism. But hey, now I'm not all by myself. I'm in the middle. Anyway, I'll be the first to say that I have disagreements. I'd like a different style on some things, et cetera. But I'm also going to be the first to say that we are very fortunate for the leadership that we have. And you can't look at any other city and see our fiscal management that's done as well as ours. And again, we're talking about aggressive leadership in some areas or in different areas. So I really appreciate the job that Jeff does and the dedication. And y'all all anybody who hadn't seen his desk, he has the organized desk. It gets cleaned off periodically, getting work done. Anyway, so I think Bristol's in a good place with our city staff and our city management. And Jeff, you might not always know it, but I do appreciate you. So, thank you. Thanks.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to remind everybody that the farmers market is going to start opening on the 10th during the evenings, so be sure to support your...
Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday. What did I say?
The 10th. Just the
Okay.
10th.
Wednesdays. So support your local farmers. The other thing is have a safe 4th of July. Remember that fireworks are still illegal in the city of Bristol, Tennessee. And I'd also like to thank council for voting me in as mayor. Hopefully I can do the best I can for you and not disappoint you. So with that.
Wait.
Oh, you did have something.
Yes, I had the honor today to witness a recognition that took place at Bill Gatton Honda, and it was given by the Sons of the American Revolution, and they presented the Friend of the Flag to Mr. Gatton for his exemplary patriotism in his display of the flag of the United States of America at his businesses. And Mr. Gatton did give a brief talk on patriotism and what it means to be an American and a citizen of the United States, which was very touching. And also read at the presentation was the American's Creed, which I'd like to share with you now. It's, I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. And that was written by William Tyler Page. And so happy 4th of July, everyone.
Perfect way to end. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.